Hey guys, it is time for a little bit of an October check-in. Hey guys, if you are new here, welcome to the Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first time, thanks for sticking around. So we are doing a little bit of a check-in for what we have done so far for a whole bunch of readathons, it seems, because we just can't seem to get them done. It's just been a little bit crazy. Oh, I did promise I would break out the Christmas leggings. As you can see, we are doing the, Jack Skellington and the lovely leg lift there, appreciate it. But I did promise that I would break some of those out. Anyway, we did go ahead and start rolling. I know that our first Spookoplathon roll, we landed on a chance card, and we ended up picking up Swipe Right for Murder by Derek Millman. This was also going to be for the seasonal spooky challenge for the urban setting, a new author, plus it dealt with tech and mixed media. I ended up DNFing this. I got, I want to say like 100 pages in, I think. It's about like that way in, and I just wasn't loving it. Basically, you have this storyline where you have this young teen boy who like goes to like this really kind of preppy, almost private school with all these kind of social elite, and they're about to graduate, and everybody's kind of doing that whole, where do we go from here? He's up in the city with some of his friends, and they all have like job interviews, and he's staying at this hotel, and he starts like swiping on this like app to find hookups for the night for gay men. And he ends up finding like a few like locally, and one of them is an older male, and he goes to the room to what, and when he wakes up, he finds that the man has been shot through the window. He's been killed, and he gets a phone call, and it starts sounding as if they suspect that it has something to do with the death of the man in the bed. And so it basically goes on the run, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And it sounded like a really great premise. I was excited because I felt like it was going to be like a lot of suspense, and it really wasn't. It was just kind of like he was able to get out of like situations that really weren't as tense as I felt like they could have been. His friends, jumped right in to help him, so he wasn't like alone on the run, which I thought was great, yay for his friends. But it just didn't give you that sense of suspense that you're like, oh my God, is he gonna get away? Oh my God, they're after him. Oh my God. Like, it didn't get a lot to that. Very interestingly enough, it had a lot of history of like the gay rights movements back in like I want to say the 70s, 80s, 90s, like back then. And that was actually interesting. I almost wish that they would have expanded on that a little bit more, because they only just gave you like, oh, this, right? And then they'd give you just like a little like paragraph about it, and then that somehow was supposed to tie in, I'm sure, later in the story. I will not know, because the rest of it just wasn't enough to keep me motivated. The characters were just kind of lackluster. Even the main character, like, he gave me a sense that he was just kind of bored with life and going through the motions, and didn't really have ambitions, and there was nothing to latch on, like personality wise, even just to make you like root for him. So I didn't really care for any of the characters, and I wasn't feeling like that on your seat suspense of this almost like mouse and cat type of catch, because it just wasn't there. So I ended up DNFing it. I don't know if I'm going to still count it in the seasonal spooky or try to add something else, because we do have a lot of books to get through. So as of right now, it's going to stand as a DNF in that marker spot. If I have time, maybe I'll go back and try to replace it with something else. But like I said, it wasn't for me. I do think that it is written for much younger kind of audience. did like that kind of historical take on it, for the rights movement. Um, but yeah, it just sadly wasn't for me. So next up, I ended up reading a book for our magical readathon, for our male character to do restoration his Q levels, which was to read a book with a poisonous plant on the cover. This one could also complete the T.B.R. Harvest Escape the Haunted House attic prompt, which was to read a book from another readathon, and that is Foxglove by Adeline Grace. This is book 2 in the Belladonna trilogy. I really, really liked Belladonna, so I was hoping that this one was going to be like right there with it. This one I ended up giving a 3-star to. It kind of dropped for me. I was expecting, with what happened in Belladonna, that there would be maybe a little bit more romance. And then when you have the introduction of Fate, I was expecting a much kind of more pushed love trilogy. However, it was very predictable about that the love trilogy might not be a love trilogy, and mistaken identities type of thing, and what was really going on, like, pretty easily in the beginning of the book. So after that, you're just kind of biding your time. Obviously, there is another murder mystery. I will say kudos to them because it was not who I thought it was. So when that happens, good on the writer for, duping me, because usually I can predict kind of what's going to happen and who's at fault. But it was interesting. You did finally get a chance to see Foxglove Manor, which is where Sigma lives and her family lives. And there's a bunch of spirits that haunt that house. So her kind of like getting to roam around and meet those spirits, including one that was like best friends with her mother. So that was kind of interesting. Obviously, Sigma can see the spirits because whatever reason, circumstances that happened at her birth. And she is, I don't want to give too much away because this is the second book and I always feel stumped on like how to kind of give the reviews for these. She has her relationship, for whatever it is, with Death, and then, like I said, now Death's brother Fate has entered the picture. So it's going to be interesting. It does tell a lot for where the next book, which is Wisteria, is supposed to go. So we'll have to pick that up because that is the last book in the series and I do want to finish it. Even though this one was a 3-star, the relationship that's starting to possibly develop and where it kind of leaves off at the end of this, it might produce some really nice enemies to lovers banter in the 3rd book. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so this one will give me my Q levels for restoration, as well as helping me escape the attic in the haunted house. Okay, so last time we had Winifred over here on chance. So we are going to go ahead and roll for our second book pick. And we have 5, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have a poll pick. So next up, I went back to the Spookoplathon board and I rolled again, and we ended up rolling a poll pick. And so we put a bunch of emojis out on the community page on YouTube, and there was kind of like this 3-way tie going between some books. And so I ended up taking those 3 and then having us read, go from there. And I think the first one was A Glass of Wine. Another one was it a gravestone? Or I think it was a gravestone. And then the other one was like this kind of Nerf looking water gun type thing. And so basically that was between, I think it was Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits, was the Nerf gun looking one. The gravestone was Her Soul to Take, and you guys ended up choosing the wine glass. I was surprised by this. I thought with the spooky season you guys were gonna go for like the gravestone or anything like that, anything spooky, but you guys went for the wine glass. And so that was Medici Heist by Caitlin Schneider. This is a kind of YA fantasy historical fiction set in the Italian Renaissance time, and you have a bunch of basically older teens that all have skills that are probably more on the illegal side, and they're all getting together to basically have a heist and steal from the Medici family. This was also going to be the magical readathon pick for my male character for restoration for the O levels, which was to have a night sky on the cover. And for the Reddit fantasy challenge, which was to have a heist pick. I don't know if I'm going to keep it as the heist pick for the Reddit fantasy because I ended up DNFing this one. I got like 160 pages in or something on this one, and I was bored. I was bored. Like, stuff was going on, but I just didn't care. The characters, I felt like they were just like briefly talked about. You didn't really get a sense of who they were. Stuff is just kind of going wrong for them from the start, which you think would create like this tension that you'd be like, oh my gosh, how are they going to get through? You really didn't care. Like, I really didn't care. The girl, the main girl, Rosa, who's kind of like the head of the operation, she's very much like my way or the highway, even if it's causing problems for everybody else that's trying to do the heist. And she's just like, well, you need to figure it out. Well, you need to figure it out. And it doesn't really seem like she's really helping everybody else. Like, everybody's kind of doing their part to get together, and you see some of them helping each other out. But she's off kind of like doing her thing where she's working with Michelangelo. Because yes, he is kind of the historical figure that's on the side of like Team Heist. And so she's kind of like talking to him and like his apprentice a lot. And she's supposed to be like faking being his niece so that she can get into the Medici galas and kind of be the inside person. And she's just kind of like so sure of herself that like it really borders on arrogance. And you know, she's got this personal vendetta for the Medicis. I'm sure it comes out at the end of the book, but I found her irritating. I didn't like her. I felt like she wasn't good for the team. I hope somebody called her out on it towards the end. I don't really care enough to read to find out. But I mean, it's just like I said, I wasn't caring for the characters. I'm usually all in for you know, a good old heist, especially in a book because you don't see it that often. But I was bored. I was really bored, and it was starting to get grueling to try to finish it because it was just a lot more like descriptive stuff and a lot more of like, yeah, we don't like them, but like no reasons why, nothing. So I ended up DNFing it. So for the magical readathon, we're going to use another scroll of closure to count this book, to count a DNF, to finish your course. So we're going to do that. And then, like I said, since the Reddit Fantasy Bingo challenge is a year long, we might try to find another book because I don't like leaving DNFs on it. I want to like choose something that I actually read and completed because it makes me feel like I did the challenge more. So we'll see how that turns out. But I was really disappointed because this was one of the books that I had my eye on since the beginning of 2024. I pre-ordered it. I was really in for it, and it just, sadly, it felt like it dropped the ball. So, yeah. So next up again, we're going to go ahead and roll. I know I didn't really do like a really nice clear cut to the roll last time, so I'm going to announce the roll this time. But we went back to the Spookoplathon board and rolled again. Okay, we are back. Please excuse any background noise. I am filming this right now when one of my kiddos is homesick from school, so there might be some noises in the background, but I'm trying to do it when it's been the most quiet. So I think last time we were here for our poll pick, and so it is time to roll again. And we have, what is that, a 6? 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is blood. So as you can see, we ended up getting blood, and that means to read a book with a red cover. I really didn't have a lot of red covers, but I ended up going to the store recently. I hadn't done a book haul yet. It's kind of been amassing to do like a fall one, but we're gonna go ahead and take a sneak peek at one I did get because I ended up getting The Counselors by Jessica Goodman, and as you can see, it's got this like big red lifeguard on the suit. There's also like specks of blood there. So I was like, good timing for that. But basically this had the book with the red cover. I'm also switching this one out with the lake because magical readathon for my male character, Alchemy, was to read a book that will make you emotional. And I had chosen the lake originally because I wanted like a spooky vibe, something to keep me on the edge of my seat, something, you know, that makes me curious or, you know, a little scared. So I ended up switching out with the counselors because this was also kind of like your YA thriller type. And then I decided to switch it out again for the seasonal spooky challenge to use it as the book with the summer camp theme, because this does take place at a summer camp. And it was also available in audiobook. I read it, but it is available in audiobook, so it does count for that one as well. I ended up giving this one, I believe it was like 3 stars, but it was like on the higher side of 3 stars. It was decently written. Basically, you have this city of Roxwood, or town of Roxwood, which is kind of like, for lack of a better term, like a podunk town. Like, not very wealthy people live there, doesn't have a lot of funding, but they have these beautiful campgrounds that run basically a summer camp for the social elite of the New England area. Really, there are a few people that come from other parts, but for the main, it is the staple summer camp for the rich. And so you basically have Goldie Easton, who is our main character. She is not rich by any means. She basically gets to go to the camp because both of her parents work there as staff. And so she's kind of grown up going to the camp, and now she is returning to be a counselor for the camp. And to her, camp is life. She has basically this backstory where she fell in love with this boy named Heller, who is kind of like the golden boy jock at her school. He's got like a one-way ticket to play hockey for a college, and she's just in love with him. And you start finding out that there was an accident one night, and she takes the blame for what is not her fault. And so the whole town is kind of turned against her. She's basically like a social pariah. And she just doesn't know what to do because she is in a place where she can't really speak the truth, but at the same time, she's not the one to blame, but she's taking the blame. So she just can't wait till summer camp because 2 of her friends, so she has these 2 best friends, Ava and Imogen, who are from the social elite, and they met back when they were all little kids, and they became like besties. And they're coming to camp. They don't know what's been going on with Goldie the past year, and so she knows she has to come clean about things because they're starting to sense stuff that's going on when they arrive. But she doesn't want them to know because she doesn't kind of want to burden them. And then she's also afraid that if they know what's going on, then, you know, more havoc will reign. But early on, Heller ends up showing up at the lake on the property of the summer camp, which is a huge no-no. And he's talking to Ava, and at first Goldie's thinking maybe Heller has a crush on Ava because Ava's beautiful, and Heller and Goldie, with what happened during the accident, have kind of broken up, not been talking, although she still really kind of cares about him, and she doesn't know how he feels about her. So she sees them kind of talking, and the next morning, Heller's body is found by the lake. And so now you don't know if Ava had something to do with it. You don't know if it was just an accident. You don't know if he did it to himself with grief of what happened over the accident. Like, there's a lot kind of going on. And I liked the fact that, you know, little by little, that like the way the chapters are written is you're getting like a what happened then and a what happened now. So you're kind of seeing a little bit of the backstories for the accident, for some of Ava's backstory as well, with her kind of family trauma, and then also what's kind of been going on in the camp. I will say that pretty early on, there were 2 kind of suspects that I thought of, and then within a few chapters, one of them, based on the evidence that was coming out, I was like, no, it can't be that, so it has to be the other one. And yeah, I was right on that. I predicted it. I think I predicted it out loud to the hubby and a friend, saying, you know, it had like 120 pages left still, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is what happened. And then towards the end of the book, I'm like, yeah, I was right. So it was predictable, but I do think that it was it was a more well written type of kind of suspense thriller. I don't know if I would really classify it as a thriller. I wasn't scared. It wasn't like there was a serial person like going around like Jason or something. It was just, one incident, and it really is more of like a murder mystery than anything else. So I just don't know. I'd classify this probably more as a mystery than like a thriller or suspense. It didn't like scare me at all, so it didn't get me emotional in that part. But you do get some of the emotions with kind of the found family aspects that she has with the people at camp versus the people in town. And then you do get some of the emotion with the curiosity of like what's going on. You get some anger involved too for what she's kind of being put through. So there were some emotions involved. So we're going to go ahead and count this for our blood pick with our red cover, our alchemy pick, because it made me emotional, and then the seasonal spooky challenge because this all is taking place at a summer camp where they are camp counselors. So went ahead and finished that one. So we are going to go back to the Spookopolis board to roll another pick. Okay, you guys, we are back with another roll. Last time we were on blood, so I went ahead and I put Winifred back over there. So we are going to go ahead and roll again, and it looks like we got 5 and 3, so we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Yep, and we have Bram Stoker. Okay, so this time we ended up landing on the Bram Stoker square, and this is basically to read a book about vampires. So for this, I picked up a book that that the author had reached out to me about on Goodreads, and I read the synopsis and I was like, yeah, I'm in. And that is Midnight Kiss by Farahilda Winters. I hope I pronounced that right. This is book 1 in the Bloodlines of Love series. It is on the thinner side, which I was grateful for. But basically you have a librarian who works kind of in the archives of the New York Library, and she deals with like old tomes of books. And she gets this book in that is basically a French diary of a nobleman that knew about vampires. And she starts becoming obsessed with this book. And you end up finding out that the book is cursed and it's got like an attachment to her. And all while this is going on, you find out that vampire clans in the city want this book because of information it may hold. And so now vampires are kind of after her, and enter Alexander, because he works for almost like the government vampire organization that tries to keep the peace. And so he's sent as the task to go get this book. He ends up meeting, obviously, Emily, the librarian, and he's kind of smitten with her right off the get-go. And so he starts kind of like courting her, and they're falling in love all the while figuring out what's kind of going on with the cursed book. And basically you find out that Emily might not be all that she seems, and that the book is basically going to kill her and she can't be separated from it, and possibly the only way is to turn her, but Alexander won't do that. You also find out about the neighbor that is crushing really hard on Emily, that he's not what he seems as well. So it kind of opens up this world. I ended up giving it a 4 stars. It just got over the 4 stars. It was what it was. There wasn't anything bad about it, really. It just, for a lot of it, I felt like the characters didn't have a lot of depth to really pull me in, and that their personalities, like they didn't have a whole lot of personality that I was reading in here, and I just wasn't connecting with the characters. And the plot line was interesting. You kind of knew where it was going, but what I liked is I felt like this, because it is the book 1 in the series, it's starting to kind of open up that world for you, and the world itself had the possibilities of being really, really interesting, because you just dipped your toes in it with this one. There is some spice in it. I would say like, I don't want to say light. It's like just a little bit more because you get like some details of the moment, but not like really explicit details. So it's not one to really like, if you like cover your eyes at like the taboo ones, this isn't like that. So I think it's pretty, digestible in that sense for that. I ended up giving it, it hopped over into like a low 4-star for me because it did start to pick up plot wise, and you did start to bring in some of the other vampire elements, and you are starting to find out kind of what's going on. There are some visions of the past and past lives possibly in this. So there was kind of a lot kind of going on towards the end, which I really did enjoy, and that just kind of bumped it over for me. So I ended up, like I said, this will complete my vampire prompt. It also completes my magical readathon year in Aurelium, the June prompt, which was to read a book with flowers on the cover. I was originally supposed to do House of Marianne for that, but this one has flowers on it. And since we have since we have a whole lot of books to get through, if I'm able to, kind of switch them out and make less for me to read this month, then I'm going to do it. So we did switch it out. So this one is going to be the June flowers on the cover picked that we, had in our backlog, and that is now complete. Which I think actually brings us now, I think there might be like a friend favorite pick that I have to read, and then we're up to date on our year in Aurelium. So we are catching ground there. I also wanted to use this for the T.B.R. Harvest Escape the Haunted House. The chimney, we went down the chimney, and that was basically to read a book with a dark cover. So I figured this had a pretty dark cover. And then I'm also using it for the seasonal spooky challenge, for one of the, not like the main prompt challenges or the like part 2 where you have to link it with the part 1, but when you can find like extra stuff on the covers or in the plot. And I'm using this for the hands because it has hands holding the heart on here. I'm also using it for the bonus challenge because it is about vampires. So we have a book about vampires. So we are going to go ahead and use that one, but I will be continuing the series. This one just came out in 2024, so we will have to wait a little bit for the next one to come out. But once it does, I'm going to continue it because I'm curious if it's going to continue with Emily and Alex's story, or if we're going to start getting new characters in. So that was basically up to date on what I have read so far, but because we have done the spins, we're gonna go ahead and take a chance again and see if the rolls, I'm sorry, I'm saying spins, if the rolls for Spookopolython will align with what we already have in our T.B.R. So let's go ahead and we will roll again. Okay, we are back at it. Last time we got Bram Stoker, so we're going to put Winifred down there, and we are going to take a chance and roll again. And we have 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Dice roll roulette. Okay, so we ended up reading the dice roulette, which we ended up reading. I can't talk. It's early in the morning here. I ended up rolling the rolls that got me on the dice roulette. We rolled again, and we ended up getting an 8. And basically for dice roulette is whatever you roll equals a certain page count for a book that you need to read. So we ended up getting a book that must be between 375 and 424 pages, which was good because it fit with a book that is already on our TBR list, and that is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is also a pick for, I think it's the seasonal spooky readathon, as well as I think it's our like your favorite scent on the cover. So they didn't have oranges, or one of the books that I wanted for orange. So we just went with peaches, which they have it because, Georgia peaches and Southern peaches and things like that. And I started reading it. I'm only about chapter 3. It's okay so far. I'm waiting for it to pick up because it's a little on the boring side, not gonna lie. I've heard mixed reviews on this, so we'll just keep going. But basically you have these women in the South in kind of like the 80s to the 90s, who are all kind of like housewives, and they have this reading club, and they're trying to read like the classical famous literature, and nobody's reading the books, and they're all kind of bored. And so one of them decides to start more of a book get together. They don't want to call it a book club, but they read a lot of like true crime and kind of murder mayhem type books. And so now they're starting to read more of that type, but you're really kind of seeing their stories as like women and during this time, and housewives, and with the kids, and kind of just like the stressors they're going through. So like I said, I haven't gotten too much into it to really do what's going on, but I do like the fact that like the different chapters are named after like books in the month that they're reading them. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm going to keep going with it. Hopefully this will not be another DNF, because I just feel like we've had way too many of those recently. But we're going to keep going with it and seeing what we can do. There are still like, I think like 8 books left that I need to try to get to by the end of the month. So we are still trying to be reading heavy, because some of those books do have some chunk to them. But we're going to keep going. And so far, Spookoplathon board has been generous and nice to me. So knock on wood that it continues, and that we can continue that way. But yeah, that is basically what we have done so far. I'm keeping you up to date, also because the books are still somewhat fresh for me to review, and I don't lose my train of thought as the end of the month approaches. So we're just going to keep trucking on and getting done and seeing how it goes. But I hope your guys' spooky season is going well. If you guys have been reading some spooky reads, let me know what has become your favorites this month. Maybe they're worth a pickup for me. Like, as long as they're not too scary. I can't handle the too scary. Yeah, send them out. Let's see what you guys are reading. Hopefully it's going good for you. If you guys are doing any challenges, let me know. And let me know how you're doing. I'll cheer you guys on. Hopefully you guys will cheer me on. I know I haven't been completing much as of late, but that's just what happens. But other than that, hope you guys are doing well. Weather's starting to get cold here, so if it's cold by you, bundle up. Start switching from those iced drinks to those nice hot warm drinks. Keep warm and take care, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.